What's up, everybody, and welcome back into Store Plus Systems. This is the place where we talk about rebuilding yourself when life forces you to confront the version of you that was surviving, but not truly living. And today's conversation is going to hit home for a lot of people because we're talking about self-worth, identity, emotional rebuilding, boundaries, people pleasing, divorce, healing, and what it happens when you finally stop abandoning yourself just to keep everybody else comfortable. A lot of people think healing looks glamorous, but real healing looks like sitting alone with your own thoughts. And real healing looks like saying no when you feel guilty. And real healing looks like disappointing people who benefited from your lack of boundaries. And real healing often starts after your life completely falls apart. Today's guest understands that deeply. She's someone who openly talks about rebuilding after divorce, learning self-trust again, and helping women stop outsourcing their worth to everybody else around them. So with that said, welcome to the show, Leah.
Thank you. I'm stoked to be here.
I'm genuinely glad that you're here because when I was reading your story, one thing that stood out immediately was how honest it felt to me. You weren't speaking from the polished, I have it all figured out place. You're speaking from lived experience. And I think listeners feel that difference immediately. You said that your second divorce was the moment that forced you to rebuild your identity. Take us back there emotionally. What was happening internally where you realized this isn't just about a marriage ending? This is about me losing myself somewhere along the way.
Yeah. After my first divorce, I didn't do anything you were supposed to do. I didn't take the time to heal, to figure out who I was, what I wanted. All I knew was I didn't want to be alone. And the inner narrative was I'm only getting older and who's going to want me now? And I have all this baggage. And so I went straight into another relationship. That was my priority is how do I find somebody to love me because I don't know how to be alone. And that led straight to divorce number two because I found myself then in an unhealthy relationship that where I was abandoning myself, where I was people pleasing, where I was learning that we weren't aligned. And so when I realized I had to go through the divorce all over again, that was just like my ugly wake up call. It's when I realized, okay, clearly, if I want different results this time, I'm going to have to do things differently. I need to do all the things and face all the things that I didn't the first time, which led me to this position. And so that's when I really dove into my own healing journey. And what that looked like was trying to cultivate self awareness, trying to figure out my role in everything. And it wasn't taking blame, but it was just taking accountability. Where was I mentally and emotionally when I started the relationship? Were there red flags that I ignored or missed? Were there boundaries I wasn't setting, right? That is what empowered me to make different choices moving forward. And so I did the meditating and the journaling and the therapy and just everything I could to help understand what got me in that position to begin with. And that's when I really started my own journey of figuring out who I am and rebuilding my confidence and getting myself to a healthier place so that I didn't continue abandoning myself anymore.
Absolutely. It sounds like you really took this self-reflection to take that self-worth that actually look like it in your day-to-day and to take those moments and to grow from those things. I think that a lot of women, they ask permission. Do you think that a lot of women confuse love with self-abandonment, that they need that permission?
I think women abandon themselves constantly because they have been conditioned to not be themselves, to be quiet, to not rock the boat, to not be difficult, to not speak your truth. And they learn that in order to be chosen or to be loved, they can't be themselves. They have to shrink themselves. So then they find themselves in relationships where they're doing that over and over again, where they're people pleasing and they're abandoning their own needs and they're afraid to speak up because they don't want to rock the boat and they don't want to be alone and they feel like they have to be what other people want them to be. And they can find themselves in on that hamster wheel and do that over and over until they get to a place where they can feel confident on their own, where they know I love myself and I respect myself and I don't need to shrink myself in order to be chosen or lovable or enough or worthy or fulfilled.
Yeah, you mentioned the hamster wheel. I can really relate to that as a woman. It's just like emotionally we go around and wondering if we're the problem or wondering if we're taking up too much space or wondering about those things. And I think a lot oftentimes that self-abandonment happens in those scenarios because so many people constantly shrink themselves to maintain those relationships, to avoid the conflict and to literally keep the peace.
Yeah.
At what point did you realize that you've been betraying yourself trying to keep everybody else comfortable? Was like a self-realization moment for you?
Honestly, I don't think that there was one moment. I think just learning and understanding more about what self-abandonment looks like over time then allowed me to reflect and go, "Oh, okay, yeah, I saw I was doing it there, and oh, yeah, I think I was doing it in that relationship too, and yeah, I can recognize that this is what was happening, and I didn't realize it." It was more of that kind of, like, progression of just having a better understanding of what that even looked like in real life and how maybe I had been doing it. And that, again, that self-reflection, it's not blaming yourself, but it's looking back and taking responsibility for the role you played. That's what then empowers you to see things more clearly and then make different choices moving forward, which will give you different results.
Clarity is the most important thing that you can have for self-worth. It's something that you have to really be able to sit with yourself at the end of the day and not have any outside distractions and things like that. I think that it allows you to see that bigger 3D puzzle pieces that snap together for the clarity.
Yeah.
And that's really powerful because most people run from discomfort immediately.
Yes.
And what does sitting in discomfort actually teach you about yourself?
That you can handle it. So many people try to avoid discomfort, but if you learn to face it and sit in it, the power of that discomfort will start to dissipate because you'll realize you had the power all along to survive it, to get through it. So many times we don't do what we feel is right, or we don't do what we want to do, or what we feel like we need to do because we're afraid of the unknown. And so really that comes down to self-trust because at the end of the day, if you have enough trust in yourself that whatever happens, however things unfold, I know that I'll get through it. I know I have what it takes to figure it out. Then it becomes easier to put yourself in those moments of discomfort because you know that you're going to make it through the other side with more resilience and more wisdom that's just going to help you moving forward.
Yeah, you said trusting yourself again didn't start as confidence. That it started with making small decisions without asking everyone else what they thought. And that's really a real statement. How disconnected from your own inner voice do you think you had to become at that point?
100% disconnected. I think we learn to stop listening to our intuition through conditioning, through being told that you're wrong, or through being told that what you think or what you feel isn't true, or it didn't happen, or that's not the right answer, or that's not what's best. And so we start to second guess ourselves. So you learn self trust by following through. Self trust comes from those little moments of, if I tell myself I'm going to drink a little bit more water tomorrow than I did today, I'm going to do it. If I tell myself I'm going to start going to the gym maybe once or twice a week, do it. That follow through, that showing up for yourself is what
It
teaches
is so
you
important.
and your subconscious, yeah, that you can trust yourself. It's the follow through.
Yeah, it really is about the follow through because once you have that self confidence that you know that you can get through those moments and then you challenge yourself again and then you accomplish feeling whatever it is that you want to accomplish at the end of the day, just those small moments and those small wins is what I call them for myself. Just posting one clip or doing one short or something that applies to the day. And it's like you begin to start to hear the clarity of your own voice again. And I think boundaries sound empowering online, but in real life, boundaries can feel terrifying, especially for women who are conditioned to feel guilty for just saying no. What boundary was the hardest for you to hold emotionally?
I think the boundary really honestly, any boundary that was just for me, right? It was learning how to do that because I think a lot of people mistake boundaries for something that they want someone else to stop doing, or they're trying to change someone else or keep them from doing or saying things. And that's really not what it is. We can never control any other human being. The boundary is for you. So it was learning that I was worthy of setting those. It was learning that it was okay for me to have a limit and to express my no, and that was valid. And I didn't need anyone else to understand it or agree with it for it to be valid. It was learning that if I feel like something isn't in alignment or isn't right for me, or I'm saying yes when I really want to say no, or I'm saying yes and then I'm resentful because I'm overextending myself. It was those truths of, you know what? I am allowed to say no. I'm allowed to not overextend myself. I'm allowed to disappoint people.
You're allowed
Learning
to take up
that part of it.
space.
Yes, you're allowed to take up space.
Yeah.
That I think was the part that was difficult to figure out that I was worthy of setting that boundary, and people's reaction to my boundary was not my responsibility anymore.
Yeah, that worthiness, that's the main word right there. You have to understand that you are worthy. In order to understand that you're worthy, you have to be able to accept it. And that comes from sitting by yourself and taking the time to really get to know yourself.
Yeah.
But it seems like a lot of people, they have distractions. They think that they're healing versus just distracting themselves with another relationship or another situation or another attachment. You talk a lot about emotional stability right now. Do you think that many people are addicted to emotional chaos without even realizing it?
100%. Yeah. So much of what we do is just autopilot on from our subconscious. 90 to 95% of what we do every day is like our subconscious. We're not even consciously doing it. And so much is conditioned even from the house we grew up in and the relationships we had with our parents and then the relationship that we were in. And sometimes even though we think we want better for ourselves, it's it feels safe to go back to what we know, what our nervous system has been conditioned is normal for us. So we could tell ourselves that something was unhealthy, but we often find ourselves in similar situations because it's just familiar, even on a subconscious or nervous system level. So that self awareness is key, right? Realizing what is toxic and understanding how to meet your own needs. Emotional stability comes from if we get triggered by something, how do we get ourselves back to that place of I feel grounded again instead of distracting, like you said, or immediately reacting emotionally to that trigger that then maybe leads to even more problems or decisions that make things even more complicated? It's like, how do we get ourselves to a place where we feel safe within ourselves, where we're meeting our needs and we can regulate our nervous system and we know that we don't need anyone else to complete us. And when you get to that place, you're a lot more likely to have high standards and to not find yourself in the same types of relationships over and over again.
Yeah, I definitely relate to that. I lived my life a lot in chaos when I was younger, so I can totally relate to that and noise. But as I've gotten older and I've had to sit with myself and really understand what it is to be grounded and to be balanced and to recenter and to have my nervous system stand down, if you will, and to quit being hyper vigilant and just looking for threat assessments everywhere. I know for myself that I indoctrinate meditation and grounding techniques and things like that for myself. And that's why I'm speaking to guests like yourself, because yeah, I believe in the lighthouse effect. And I think that we all can help one another to expand and to reshape those boundaries that we were taught as a child to survive. The survival mode is not where you need to live at all of the time. You can regulate yourself. What changed in your nervous system once you stopped living in that survival mode?
Everything. I Once I stopped living in survival mode and I learned how to really ground myself and how to be in control of my thoughts, that was a huge thing, right? Is like our brains pump out like 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day and it's just mayhem up there. But every thought that pops up isn't necessarily true. Our brains are lying to us all the time. And so I think just learning that I didn't have to listen to every thought that popped up and learning how to somatically regulate my body when I felt activated, it changes everything because then you can hear yourself. You can connect more with your intuition and your higher self. And it's easier to not emotionally react to all of the chaos that's going on outside of you. And it's easier to stay in alignment and make decisions that feel good and feel like they are right. They're the right choice for you and who you want to be and the life that you're trying to create, instead of making decisions out of fear or survival mode or just what you think would make other people happy.
So, who is Leah now compared to the woman walking through that second divorce? What parts of you had to recalibrate, if you will, and what parts finally got permission to exist?
All of them got permission to exist. I think the woman I am today is somebody who's wiser, stronger, more resilient. But also, I'm in the driver's seat of my life now. I took my power back by learning how to regulate myself and build my self trust and rebuild my identity and rebuild my confidence and make small decisions every day that are aligned with who I am now and who I want to be, not based off of who I was.
There's somebody listening right now who knows that they've abandoned themselves, but they're scared to make changes because they don't trust themselves yet. What would you say directly to that person?
I would say be patient with yourself, have compassion. It does take time, but self trust will completely change your life. And it starts with those small little things. So it's just about making those little promises to yourself and keeping them. And the more you do that, the more your self trust will build. And another little tip, too, I would say is before you get to that point where you're second guessing yourself and spiraling, try to make little decisions quickly. This will help build your self-trust too, when not everything is a life-changing decision, right? So when there's smaller decisions on the table, trust your first instinct and stand in it and go with it before fear creeps in and then the overthinking and the second guessing takes place. Own your choice, and it's either going to work out great or you're going to learn something. And either way, you're building your self-trust and you're building your confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, everything is data. Whether it goes wrong or goes sideways or whether it performs and is strategically brilliant.
You're
So
learning. Yeah.
I get it. And you know what? Every single day for me, a small win is getting up and making my bed. That's something
Yes.
I know is a small win for me every single day, and it gets me going. And again, those small wins really matter. It doesn't have to be substantial. It just matters that you make the movement and you have the consistency so that you can have the momentum. And once you have the momentum, then you have leverage, and that's a beautiful thing. For everybody listening who connected with your story today, where can they follow you, support your work, or learn more from you?
Sure. You can follow me everywhere on social, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok. My handle is at Mindfully Ready. Or you can go to my website, mindfullyready.com. And if you're going through a divorce, I do have a free divorce recovery starter kit that can help you with that emotional stability and rebuilding your self-trust and your identity again.
I will make sure that all of Leah's links are down below in the description so everybody can connect with her directly. I think one of the biggest takeaways from this conversation is this. A lot of people are functioning, but they're disconnected from themselves. They're over-explaining, they're over-giving, and they're over-performing. And they're over-promising. And eventually, life reaches a point where your nervous system and your body and your relationships and your own emotions, everything starts demanding truth. It's not performance, it's truth. And rebuilding yourself is uncomfortable because you start realizing how much of your life was built around fear instead of alignment. So, Leah, thank you for being honest, vulnerable, and grounded with me here today. I know this conversation is going to help a lot of people. And to everybody listening, if this episode hit you emotionally, share it with somebody who needs it. This is Soul Plus Systems. And remember, spectators watch and operators rebuild. See you in the next one.